if you look at the fundamentals of Tesla, they haven't changed at all. This company's going to earn at least $7 next year. It's growing volumes at 40%, earnings at 50%, and yet it's trading at literally, my numbers, 22 times earnings. So it's just above the S&P. And I would argue there's a ton of catalysts in front of us. They got Cybertruck. They have a $30,000 model coming out. We think they're going to have a $10 billion buyback next year. The IRA, which is $7,500 EV credit, is going to kick in next year. So the fundamentals are extraordinary. The problem is all the noise.
The deluge of Tesla news and coverage continues. Yesterday, more coverage on Tesla in a single 24-hour period than I've ever seen in the history of company. Maybe on par with the first stock split, the S&P 500 inclusion, and Tesla 10xing or more in the span of 3 milliseconds. In the following 24 hours, another near record day of coverage around Tesla's stock in the mainstream media. Even the bears, even those who've been negative on Tesla for the last half decade straight, are now starting to ask the question, hang on a minute, does that valuation make sense? It kind of seems cheap now, guys. We really are at a tipping point. So in this video, we're going to hear from bulls, bears, ex-bulls, and everyone in between, including somebody who incredibly is currently short Tesla stock at 2-year lows. I'm not even kidding. And it's official. There's now over 250 exclusive videos on Patreon and counting. If you're not a member, put yourself out of the misery. You can join now with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. Today's video, another very hot topic.
Gary, good to have you. And of course, our viewers may recall you have been somewhat critical of these dual responsibilities, really more than that Musk has, but in particular what he's doing at Twitter. What would you like to see here?
Look, if you look at the fundamentals of Tesla, they haven't changed at all. This company's going to earn at least $7 next year. It's growing volumes at 40%, earnings at 50%, and yet it's trading at literally, my numbers, 22 times earnings. So it's just above the S&P.
A couple of things here. First of all, Gary has a brain and he appears to be using it. Nothing fundamental has changed about Tesla. In fact, the fundamentals are incredible, yet the stock getting absolutely crushed by the noise. Gary pointing out there stunningly, Tesla now, forward PE, give or take, is in line with the S&P 500 average. Now, for those that don't understand, we're talking about future earnings, stock market wankery. Generally speaking, the more a company is growing and the more profitable they are, the higher the PE, the price earnings ratio, the stock market awards to said company. For it to make sense, for it to be reasonably logical for Tesla's forward PE multiple to be about the same as the average in the S&P 500, and future prospects would also need to be about the same as the average company in the S&P 500. Surely I don't need to point out that this doesn't make any sense because Tesla is growing far faster than just about any other company in the index, is far more profitable, is printing more money, and has far brighter future prospects than any other company. Yet, for some reason, the stock market seems to have forgotten this fundamental fact. Hence, Gary pointing out the absurdity of Tesla's current valuation. The stock today isn't even at $200 per share. Gary Black has a $550 per share 6 to 12 month price target on Tesla stock, based on A, having a brain, and B, using it. This is an absolutely insane disconnect, in my opinion. I think Gary tends to agree. This is one of those periods in time that separates investors from emotional infants, creates an incredible extended opportunity. Again, just in my opinion, do your own thinking and homework and then make your own decisions. The disconnect is just absolutely astonishing right now. As I mentioned in a recent video, Tesla now has a lower forward PE than Chipotle. Now, call me crazy, but I personally think burritos versus Tesla, really?
And I would argue there's a ton of catalysts in front of us. They got Cybertruck. They have a $30,000 model coming out. We think they're going to have a $10 billion buyback next year. The IRA, which is $7,500 EV credit, is going to kick in next year. So the fundamentals are extraordinary. The problem is all the noise.
Nailed it. The fundamentals are extraordinary. The noise, which has nothing to do with Tesla's execution, aka the fundamentals, is almost entirely responsible for the current discount on Tesla stock. Of course, you guys and girls can blame me because I have been praying daily to the flying spaghetti monster for a sustained discount on Tesla, and my prayers have been answered. So you can blame me, not Elon.
You know, what we would like to see is that, Elon bring in a CEO for Twitter who's from the social media space, give up running Twitter, and refocus again on being 100% Tesla's CEO. And I believe that the board is probably pressuring him to do that because I can't imagine a board letting him spend so much time, rebuilding company from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, I would think for the longest time during Tesla's history, there was a Musk premium. Do you think there's now a Musk discount?
I don't think so yet, David. Look, the problem is with him insulting his customers. And so he took over Twitter and he immediately said he's going to name and shame the advertisers, which pissed off all the advertisers. 50% of them left, and Amazon and Apple have come back. So I think that's turned the corner because he's kind of stopped that. But lately, he's got this woke mind virus rhetoric that I'm sure is not making his EV customer base that happy. These are the same people who are buying EVs, and I know you've pointed that out. And I think that's just a big mistake. So I would hope that some of his advisors are saying, "Hey, Elon, you're brilliant. You've created so much value, but stop pissing off all of our customers because that's not going to help the EV business." Do I think people are actually canceling orders because of his woke mind virus rhetoric? I don't believe so. People still love buying Teslas. They're the best cars on the market. They're the only ones that can, give great performance, great battery range, great technology, and safety. And those are the four elements that people look for when they buy an EV. And so I think that this is just a pause. This is price. It's not value, right? The price has fallen, but the value really hasn't changed. If you look at estimates by the street, they really haven't changed all that much, despite all this noise, for lack of a better word.
Just want to dive into one of Gary's points there. Brilliantly said. The difference between Tesla's stock price and Tesla's value right now. Gigantic, gaping disconnect.
Let's continue the conversation, though, by focusing on another aspect of Tesla's turmoil, renewed interest in the automaker by everyone from retail investors to Cathie Wood. Some of them seeing this as a good time to buy. Other side of the trade, right? If he's selling, somebody's buying. I find it's Alexandra Semenova has been looking at that side of the story.
Well, exactly, Julie. It has been a rough month for Tesla, but you know who is not shaken by what's been going on? None other than ARK Invest Cathie Wood, who continues to stand in Elon Musk's corner despite all that is going on with Twitter and Tesla. We know that she's been a long-time Tesla bull and hasn't been phased at all since his acquisition of Twitter. Yesterday was the perfect example of her continued conviction in Tesla. According to a transaction report that hit my inbox after the close, she snapped up nearly 75,000 shares valued at around $11.7 million based on yesterday's closing price. A hefty amount of that, of course, went to her flagship ARK fund. And it did come just before we learned about Musk's offloading of Tesla shares that rattled investors. But I don't imagine that things would be any different for Wood had that report come out before her purchases. We've seen Elon Musk sell off Tesla before, and that hasn't really phased her long-term outlook for Tesla. Julie, you spoke to her last week. She said that she continues to believe in Musk in the future, and, as she said before, he is ARK's renaissance man.
Well, there's other believers here too, Alexandra, and that is the retail investor that might be looking at, this decline in Tesla shares as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I've got to say, it has been incredible to watch the transformation of Brian on Yahoo Finance over the last 2 years. If memory serves, keeping in mind that I may or may not be high every time I make a video, this guy was super anti-Tesla, super anti-Elon. Then maybe 6-9 months ago, he started to make some fair and reasonable points. The transformation has continued. I think he's starting to get it. I think he's becoming the odd person out on the panel at Yahoo Finance. I don't know, maybe he found YouTube or Twitter recently. I mean, the guy literally just pointed out something very accurate, that retail investors, at least many of us, are discovering that Tesla stock today, sub 200, December 2022, really may be the investment opportunity of a lifetime. Of course, this is just my personal opinion, which is backed up by my personal actions, which have included buying Tesla stock with every spare cent. Then again, I've been doing that for the last 6-7 years, so nothing's new.
Exactly. Individual investors are also buying up Tesla stock. That's been their favorite for a while. In fact, retail inflows have actually been lower this month compared to the monthly average, but they haven't changed their interest in Tesla at all. Net retail purchases of Tesla reached $610 million across the 5 trading sessions ended Tuesday. That's according to the latest available data, probably even higher today. And despite a slowdown in allocations, retail investors continue to focus on their same favorite trades, that is Tesla, technology stocks, energy stocks, and occasionally buying the dip. They bought the dip across airline stocks earlier this week. And an interesting point to make here too is that even as institutional interest in Tesla, falls out of favor as they de-risk and rotate out of Tesla, the retail purchases of Tesla have actually helped offset some of those losses. So it would be even lower if it weren't for those individual investors who believe in Elon Musk.
Shares of Tesla in focus this morning as recent filings show that CEO Elon Musk has sold over 20 million shares of the electric automaker. This in addition to other large sales of stock in November, August, and April. He's now sold roughly $23 billion in Tesla shares. And I know this is not welcome news for a lot of Tesla followers and Tesla bulls. We've seen a lot of backlash coming through online, especially on social media, Akiko.
So let's think about the possible reasons as to why Elon Musk's sale of Tesla stock would be a concern or an issue for some retail investors. Let's think through all the possible reasons. If I leave any out, let me know in the comments below. 1, they're not in fact a retail investor, but a fund manager who is judged on their quarterly or annual performance, aka short term. In which case, I totally understand why they wouldn't be happy. Not a good look if Tesla's the biggest position in your flagship fund, and as a result of that, Tesla, a 60% haircut over the last year, give or take, dragging down the performance of your entire fund over a short period of time. People pointing and laughing, what a loser, bro, you can't even beat the index, sucked in, bro. I understand that perspective, but that's not really a retail investor. I guess another reason is if you didn't know what the fuck you were doing in the first place, you just willy-nilly group thought your way into buying Tesla stock without any homework having been done. You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea what the future prospects of the company look like. You don't have a valuation model. You have no idea what you think they'll be doing for earnings or vehicles sold or anything at any future point in time. You just bought Tesla because everyone else was buying Tesla, in which case, 1, what a dumbass, and 2, that's also not an investor. That's a moron who thinks they're an investor. Then you've got the short-term gamblers, looking for a quick buck, hoping and wishing for certain events to occur. Then big bad Elon ruins their plans. It's Elon's fault. My short-term trade didn't work because something unpredictable happened in the future that I couldn't predict ahead of time because it was in the future. And I don't like that, and I'm mad. A lot of people are taking out their frustrations on Elon, in this case. And then, of course, there's the dullards who invested money that they would require at some point in the near-term future, thereby not giving the money an opportunity to sit in Tesla stock long enough, over a long enough period of time, to be sitting on a very strong capital gain, to be in a situation now where they're forced to sell Tesla stock at significantly lower than they paid for it. These too are not investors, but fools who've hopefully learned a valuable lesson. Outside of that, none of these being retail investors, the only others who are upset about this, in my opinion, are emotional infants who think themselves to be investors, but aren't emotionally mature enough to actually be investors. These people are complaining, crying, blaming Elon, attacking Elon, getting mad, getting butthurt, rage quitting, literally selling their Tesla. This guy. Selling at a loss because they're mad. And if hopefully these people have learned that they just don't have what it takes emotionally to be investing in stocks. Not everyone's cut out for investing. The facts are the facts. But outside of those, I don't actually think there's any retail investors who are upset at all. In fact, quite the opposite. They're licking their lips, backing the truck up, and buying with every spare cent. As Brian pointed out moments ago, many retail investors out there are seeing this as the opportunity of a lifetime. So I do take issue with the claim that this is bothering, disturbing, upsetting, pissing off, angering Tesla retail investors. I don't think this is true. Many people who think they're investors certainly might be pissed. But outside of the examples, fund managers, short-term traders, gamblers, etc., and people who didn't do any thinking and didn't have a thesis in the first place, I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a retail Tesla stock investor who isn't over the fucking moon about the current sale on Tesla stock. In fairness, I should probably also mention the investors who bought Tesla stock on margin, but then again, if you're using margin, you do your homework, you think about the worst-case scenario, you ensure you have a buffer and you don't get totally fucked with the margin call at the worst possible time. So again, if you're investing responsibly and intelligently, don't get me wrong, I'm sure those with Tesla stock on margin right now have very, very tight sphincters, but this, of course, is why it's very important to ensure that you have a huge margin of error. Get it? Margin, huh? So if the stock collapses, you don't get fucked. At least you don't get fucked without consent.
Yeah, not welcome news. Putting it pretty lightly there, Rochelle, when you think about the reaction to this sale. And let's go back to what we heard from Elon Musk back in April, because that was the time where he said that we're no longer selling any additional Tesla shares, or I think he said we're not planning to sell. Since then, we're talking about a sale of 22 million shares Monday through Wednesday. We're talking about $3.6 billion raised. All of this, of course, we don't know exactly why he sold the shares. The speculation is that he needs the money to pay down the debt from his acquisition of Twitter because there are concerns he can't meet that interest payment. There's a tweet right there from Elon Musk back in April. No further Tesla shares planned.
So as we know, words matter. So let's look up the definition of plan. Oh boy, someone's trying to get me cancelled today. I can't. What define woman? An adult female human? Oh shit, I'm not even going to read that. I might get cancelled. Oh geez, hate speech. That's a fine line. Geez, I tell you what, man, I almost lost my entire YouTube career over that one thing. Make sure you cut that out, editor. I might get cancelled anyway. Define plan. After all, Elon said no further Tesla stock sales planned. Plan, a detailed proposal for doing or achieving something. Not quite the relevant definition. An intention or decision about what one is going to do. There we go. This is pretty close. Here we go. Verb. Decide on and make arrangements for in advance. So, when Elon Musk says no further Tesla stock sales planned, what he's saying is no further sales of Tesla stock have been decided upon and no plans for the sale of Tesla stock have been arranged in advance. I've seen a few brain-dead morons, and I want to make sure everyone gets that, brain-dead morons, because they don't even know how to use a dictionary. Brain-dead morons calling Elon a liar because he said no further Tesla stock sales planned. Again, brain-dead morons. Words matter. It's worthwhile understanding this because often Elon uses words and people go, he used some words, but I'm going to invent definitions and meanings where there are none or forget that word was included to create my own narrative. Now, I'm talking to everyone right now who's criticized Elon for being a liar or a hypocrite because he said no further Tesla stock sales were planned. You're all brain-dead morons. Learn how to use a dictionary. Learn what words mean. And before making comments on words someone has used, make sure that you know the definitions of the words they used. All of them. Otherwise, brain-dead moron. Just the facts. And the reason for such a hard stance on this is quite simple. For you to form a negative opinion about another human being, you better fucking well be damn sure that it's valid. For you to read words directly written by another person for which you do not understand the definition or the meaning, to make a negative judgment, a character assessment, to evaluate that person, liar, fraud, no integrity, dishonest, untrustworthy, etc. You are clearly not only a moron, but just a bad person. If you assume somebody is a good person and later it turns out you are wrong, you made a mistake. If you assume somebody is a bad person and later it turns out you are wrong, you're a
Now that he has sold additional shares, we have heard some of the most bullish analysts who have been very bullish on Tesla as well, Elon Musk, coming out and saying that, simply that there needs to be something that Tesla does. Ross Gerber, of course, a frequent guest on our show, saying Tesla should announce a buyback immediately, stop the dilution from Elon sales. It also allows the company to take advantage to the low share price.
While I strongly advocate for Tesla buying back a ton of shares ASAP, if you don't, you better have a good reason, Tesla. I'm also starting to notice the loudest voices, hey Tesla, you need to do something, seem to be people who are managing money for others. I love Ross Gerber, although we do disagree on a lot of points. Quite strongly, I'll add. Ultimately, it's up to Tesla's board to decide whether or not now is the time to buy back shares. Remember, Tesla knows things that we don't know. My thesis around buybacks has always been very clear. With the money left over after Tesla has already invested in every possible growth project available, allocated a reasonable buffer for potential future projects, and in addition to that, another buffer on top of that for any unknowns, things they can't even predict, and sufficient capital for future extremely capex intensive projects, maybe like building their own robotaxi fleet for internal operation and or bot fleet. The spare money after that, as a Tesla stock investor, if Tesla's keeping spare money in cash above and beyond what they need for emergencies, future plans, including those that are very capital intensive, the money above and beyond Tesla's massive safety net and funds available for capital expenditure, if Tesla's keeping this in cash and they don't have a good reason, I'll be super fucking mad. I'm pretty confident the Tesla stock itself will produce a slightly higher return than cash will over the next decade. Of course, I could be wrong, but I doubt I will. Otherwise, I just have all my own money in cash. So I get it from Ross's point of view. I actually agree. I really like Tesla to do share buybacks. But that being said, they may know something that we don't know, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But as I said, they better have a good reason for not buying back shares. The point of share buybacks isn't to pump the stock, isn't to change investor sentiment, isn't to increase EPS. That will be a byproduct, but that's not the point. The sole purpose is for Tesla to get a better return on their excess cash than they will having it sit in cash and erode due to inflation.
Dan Ives, another voice who has been quite bullish on Tesla, also weighing in on Twitter yesterday, saying self-inflicted issues from Musk around Twitter continue to plague the Tesla story and investors' frustrations building. Another Tesla stock sale fuels the black cloud around this story. So, there you have it, Rochelle. We talked about this at the time of the acquisition, how much of the distraction around Twitter would spill over into Tesla. SpaceX, obviously not a public company yet, but other Elon ventures. And you could argue we're seeing that right now.
And it's certainly one thing to be distracted, have your attention elsewhere. But when now what you've purchased for Twitter is now affecting your other businesses like Tesla, we knew Tesla shareholders were sort of bracing for any sort of potential impact here. But I want to draw your attention to Leo Corguan. He's the third largest individual Tesla shareholder after Musk himself and Larry Ellison. And he describes himself as a Musk fanboy. So he's been rooting for Musk. But he tweeted that Elon abandoned Tesla and Tesla has no working CEO, adding, Tesla matters. Elon is a mere hired hand. He's our employee. Tesla is a 19-year-old ranked fourth with 2.4% allocation in the S&P, not a baby, and soon to be the biggest. Elon was the proud father. Tesla has grown up. An executioner Tim Cook-like is needed, not Elon. The idea of separating Elon from Tesla, I think, would be mind-blowing. There is this culture of personality that comes with Elon Musk and the trust there. So to see the third largest shareholder in Tesla coming out that strongly, I mean, that's a big warning sign.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to point that out, that Elon Musk is a brand in himself. And so what he does in terms of Twitter, what he says about Twitter also affects the Elon brand. That also includes Tesla. When you're talking about the stock itself, we should point out since the beginning of this month, it's down nearly 20%. We saw the market cap yesterday close below $500 billion for the first time in 2 years. So no question we are seeing a bit of a pullback there in terms of Tesla stock. But again, worth noting, we don't know explicitly why he sold the shares. The speculation is that it is about Twitter and the debt he has to pay down as we continue to see some of the bleeding happen there. Advertisers pulling back, a number of changes on the platform as well. And I mean, who knows? A year from now, we could be talking about this disruption that happened before the major turnaround around Twitter. I mean, I don't know. Rochelle, I'm done talking about where this platform is going because it feels like every week it is a different story. But with that said, Tesla firmly in focus today because of the concerns around distraction over at Twitter. So we're going to continue to watch that. The shares hitting a 52-week low today.
Just for the record, I believe Tesla, give or take, is approximately at 2-year lows, not 1-year lows. If you had told me I could be buying Tesla stock today for the same price as I was in late 2020, I definitely wouldn't have believed you.
How much of a concern is this Tesla selling, you think, especially that it's paired up against Twitter, which is in such a different industry and in such need of capital?
Hi, John. Good to be back. Good to see you. So Tesla's a brand, right? And that brand is being tarnished on the daily because of Musk's behavior publicly on Twitter. You buy cars, I buy cars. We know that a car is a cornerstone of a consumer's identity, at least for a large subset of consumers. Traditionally, Tesla's said, I am a, technology forward, environmentally conscious global citizen. And that is no longer the case. Now it is a confused brand where it is, that brand is associated with a founder that attacks Fauci. He, promotes characters that are anti-Semitic. And it really has turned off a lot of the buyers. I mean, right now, I remember when we used to talk about how proud we were of owning a Tesla. And now if you look at social media, the biggest thing you see are people taking screenshots of them canceling their order. So
right.
The brand is tarnished.
So, Colin, some of the bulls like to say that the fundamentals haven't actually changed all that much given his distraction with Twitter. But what Brahim just laid out there, the brand, that feels pretty fundamental.
I agree with it. It's a real concern, and it's happening in real time right now. What we've been looking at is on the technology side, where Tesla continues to strut out in front of competitors, and I think is being underappreciated for the innovation that they've done within the EV space and the material space. But the brand issue and the long-term impact of that is a legitimate concern. And beyond that, the debt load that you guys were talking about earlier from Twitter impacting, Tesla shares because of the selling is a concern, right? And as we start to get a little bit more clarity on that, we think there's some support for Tesla. But from a fundamental perspective on the technology side, we feel very good about this. But the premium that Tesla's gotten in the market from a pricing perspective is potentially at risk. And so one thing we haven't seen the company do is spend aggressively on marketing. And at the point that we start to see that could be a real signal for the challenges on the sell-through for the vehicles.
Brahim, I wonder if you think that perhaps people are reading too much into what's happening at Twitter. I mean, when you look at Tesla, yes, it has fallen significantly over the last few months, but really it's come in line with the rest of FANG and big tech losses over the last year and a half.
Yes, except that its PE ratio is trading even after a 58% drop in the price of the stock. It's still trading at a 50 times multiple on its PE, while Alphabet is in the mid-20s, GM is in, I think, something like in the single digits. So I think the days of Elon Musk performing for his vast retail stockholder base is behind us, because that's what he's been doing for a long time, because Tesla uniquely has something like a 42% of their stock is held by retail investors. And while Alphabet right here is that, retail investors are at 18%. So he can get away with things, at least he used to be able to get away with things based on who is holding the Tesla stock. But I think those days are over because he, as a market mover, has lost a lot of credibility. And remember, a lot of those retail investors only entered the investment space in the last 14 years, where all we've ever seen is just growth, growth, growth. This is the first time they've ever been confronted with a recession. We've lived through many of these, and this is when you actually know yourself as an investor or not. It's through these hard times, not when the market goes up for 14 years straight.
I know investors are angry. If you bought above where it is today, you've lost a lot of money.
Once again, I take issue with this comment. Investors aren't angry. Gamblers might be angry. Fund managers might be angry. Emotional infants might be angry. Sheeple might be angry, but I think investors are licking their lips and buying the dip. As for suggesting that those who bought at higher prices than today have lost a lot of money, let's talk about this. This is a spreadsheet. Well, to be specific, this is my spreadsheet showing my transactions, all purchases. I haven't ever sold a single share of Tesla stock since 2021. Let's tally up my total loss or gain in US dollars over that period of time. If you want to nerd it out, pause. You can see every transaction here, but let's just get to the point. Negative $1,371. That's right. On paper, down almost 700,000 US dollars. So how much money have I lost? Let me know in the comments below. The answer, I haven't lost any money because I haven't sold any Tesla stock. There are only two prices that ever matter. What did you pay and what do you ultimately sell for? I haven't lost a cent investing in Tesla stock. Not a cent. I understand this. Many emotional infants who think they're investors do not. How much money have you lost on Tesla stock? Let me know below.
But then maybe bears like you would say, yeah, it's down, but it should never have been valued where it was in the first place, which, by the way, at one point, I believe, was worth more than every car company in the world combined.
Yeah, there have been days where moves in the stock have exceeded the value of, historic names like General Motors, right? So Tesla has been egregiously overvalued for the last couple of years based on hype, on things that we do not see as real, like robo-taxis. Playing up a software angle where, frankly, the optical illusions that these systems are seeing on such a frequent basis are really the root cause behind these catastrophic accidents. And that kind of exaggeration and press on hyperbole to drive a valuation has been reckless and irresponsible. We've been consistent in saying that Tesla should not be worth more than Toyota. Toyota has produced an order of magnitude more vehicles than Tesla, and Tesla does not have anything that Toyota does not have already.
I've been biting my tongue so hard my mouth is full of blood, but I can't stay quiet anymore. Of all the absurd things Craig has said, this absolutely takes the cake. Tesla doesn't have anything that Toyota doesn't have, other than extremely profitable, highly compelling electric vehicles, the software capabilities, the ability to do over-the-air updates, expertise in thermal management, the full self-driving software, the data collection flywheel, Elon Musk, Tesla's engineers. I could literally keep going for another hour. I have no qualms, no issues with somebody being bearish on Tesla. But if you say stuff that is this absurd, this ridiculous, this counter to reality, not only do you immediately and permanently destroy your credibility in terms of your thoughts around Tesla, but it makes it impossible for me to take anything you say seriously. There is no way Craig believes what he says. I just cannot believe the guy is that dumb. So the question is, why would Craig say something so dumb, knowing it's untrue? Or is he actually as dumb as he seems to be based on what he's saying?
Yeah. And could the market, Toyota is just a more conservative company that has a long-term vision of protecting its balance sheet, different risk appetite than Tesla. So, what's going on now does not surprise me. My price target is $85. I expect that, while Tesla did a tremendous job creating the electric vehicle market, you're going to see a lot of things continue to evolve. There's going to be great growth, but, growth is underperforming. The competitors are doing really well. And you have a probable new CEO next couple months. It can't be good for the stock.
So your price target indicates almost another halving of the stock. Can we talk about Musk gets all this attention for Twitter? The left loved him. Now the left hates him. He's got like 75 other companies. Whatever. I haven't heard anyone actually say, Craig, how Teslas are selling. Everybody talks about everything else around Tesla except, hey, is anyone buying the car? How are sales doing?
I'm truly stunned, by the way. I said this in yesterday's video. The same thing is happening now. The tide is turning. Even those who in the past have been extremely bearish on Tesla, many absurdly bearish, counter-reality buying Tesla Q-FUD, even the folks in the mainstream media who spent the last 4 or 5 years shitting on Tesla constantly, talking about bankruptcy concerns, this, that, and the other, are now starting to question the idiocy of the current discussion around Tesla, the noise versus the fundamentals. Something's changed. We really have reached a tipping point when even the bears, even those who are super negative, are now going, well, hang on a minute. How about the fundamentals, the stuff that actually matters? How's that going? You know something's changed.
So sales are great if you want to step back, right? 45% growth this year is tremendous, right? That is the electric vehicle market. That is the market that, Elon Musk basically created. He forced everybody else into this game. So sales are great, but it's not about how great they are. It's about how they are versus expectations. Expectations were higher. So they're having to discount to drive volumes in the fourth quarter. They've cut the price in North America by about $3,700.50. Sorry, $3,750 per car. That's half of the expected federal subsidy we're going to get from the IRA in 23. In China, the price cut's actually been larger. It's somewhere between 5 and 9.5%. Again, to stimulate December deliveries, they cut their actual delivery. They cut their production numbers in December in China by 20%. So the growth rate is flagging versus expectations. And it's really an expectations game that matter. The first derivative, the second derivative on Wall Street that drives valuation. Things are slowing down for Tesla.
On what planet?
Competitors are eating their lunch.
If by competitors eating Tesla's lunch, he means they're actually filming while Tesla eats their girlfriend, then yeah.
Competitors are coming out with much more attractive models.
As somewhat of a connoisseur of attractive models, I believe what Craig just said is unequivocally false.
Tesla's facing real issues and real risks that it hasn't faced over the last several years.
Tesla shares continue to slide this morning in a regulatory filing. Elon Musk disclosing he sold another 22 million shares of the company from Monday through Wednesday, worth about $3.6 billion. Tesla did close yesterday with a market cap below $500 billion for the first time in 2 years, as investors have expressed concerns about Musk's focus on Twitter. People are watching the PE at Tesla, now below, say, Chipotle.
Well, I mean, look, Twitter is going to go down as perhaps, David, you're familiar with all the great ones.
Yes, I am.
AOL.
Yes, I am. I have a long list of horrible deals.
Well, this one is requiring endless financing because it's losing endless amounts of money.
We don't know exactly why he sold the shares, but we can surmise perhaps it is in part because he is seeing an opportunity to, either the company needs it for its ongoing operations, or there's an opportunity that he may have to reduce the debt load in some way and thereby reduce his annual interest payments, which may be as much as $1 billion.
Oh, wait a second.
Because he's taken on 12.5, almost 13 billion in debt, as we well know. Thank you, Morgan Stanley. I don't know where they're going to mark that stuff at this point. Not going to sell it to anybody unless they really want to clear the market low.
To them.
Yeah.
Now you sound
they
like
end
someone
up owning the company.
You sound like someone who's done a lot of work on this and know things that the rest of us don't.
Well, I as you know, I've been following it quite closely. That said, it's always hard to discern exactly what's going on at Twitter. He sold $23 billion worth of stock since he said he wasn't going to sell anymore of Tesla.
That's just this past round.
Yeah. I mean, that's since April.
Yeah, April was when he said no more
sales.
He got in the place, and I think you recognize. Well, look, there are a lot of advertisers that have gone away. The trajectory wasn't good anyway. He bought a company. Look, he got had. He didn't know that there's a system of law where there's some little state, Delaware. I don't know if he was like Delaware, we knew where it was. And he got Delaware Chancery, who turned out to be...
We know the story. We know that he got himself caught in something he shouldn't have because he seemed to make an emotional decision in a very quick amount of time to buy this company at $54.20, and they said sold to you.
And no one was scared of him. They weren't scared of him.
All true, but none of it means a thing anymore. He owns Twitter. He paid $44 billion for it, and the only question is, what is its future? And will he be able to meet his interest payments?
Well,
is he endangering the future of the company as a result of all the different things he's tweeting? Or is he putting it on a new path that is going to lead to greater and ultimate success far beyond what it had previously?
Maybe it's going to turn out to be the greatest investment ever. He's selling down. There's a valuation for his SpaceX.
$140 billion was the last number.
What is that? I mean, will you give me a break? You think that can come up in this market? That's not even worth more than the Fanatics.
I don't know about
Rubin
that.
thing.
Actually, I would argue SpaceX might be able to come public even in this market.
Well, yeah, because of P.T. Barnum?
They launch a rocket every 6 days, and they have Starlink, which, by the way, could have real significant revenues from commercial operations.
Just in case you needed any further evidence that Jim Cramer is both simultaneously an intelligent guy and an absolute fucking moron, keeping in mind this is the same guy who said don't buy Tesla stock, don't even rent it, back in 2010, Cramer's balking at SpaceX's current absurdly low private market valuation. They have a stranglehold on the launch industry. You thought Tesla was dominating EVs? Have you seen SpaceX's dominance of the launch industry? No one can compete. No one is close. Not a single other company literally on the planet has developed their own reusable rockets. And clearly, Jim Cramer has absolutely no fucking idea about Starlink. I mean, holy shit, dude. If you don't know what you're talking about, and you're going to make a strong statement, I'm going to roast the shit out of you. This is one of Cramer's dumbest calls of all time. Right up there with Bear Stearns is fine. Starlink alone is one of the biggest money printers of all time. Phenomenal user growth. Insane revenue. I just cannot. Honestly. Jim, dude, please. The mountains of cocaine this guy consumed in his youth seems to have affected his ability to think and reason. Allegedly, I've never seen any evidence of Jim doing any such things. If you disagree, you must have seen some historical videos of Jim Cramer explaining out loud in a huge rant that definitely wasn't fueled by an insane surge of dopamine in his system about how his hedge fund and other hedge funds manipulate stock prices.
Tesla, meantime, one of the only 2 positive NASDAQ 100 stocks today, but don't get too excited. Tesla is still one of the index's worst performers so far this week, down almost 12%. CEO Elon Musk dumping almost $3.6 billion worth of stock this week. And our next guest predicts more trouble ahead. Danny Moses of The Big Short fame is founder of Moses Ventures. He is shorting Tesla. Still, not enough for you.
Not enough yet. No, not enough yet.
Can't decide whether this guy is stupid, courageous, or both, but I can tell you one thing for sure. I have a very, very high level of confidence. He's going to be bleeding profusely from the anus in no time at all. Can you imagine being short Tesla stock at 2-year lows with Tesla's forward PE now in line with the S&P, despite growing multiple times faster than an average S&P company? I can understand being short at $400 a share, $1 trillion market cap. I wouldn't have done it. I was buying at the time because I've got a long-term horizon. I can understand back then. But now the Tesla stock has seen a 60+% haircut from its all-time highs. To still be short, it's like sticking a firework up your ass, lighting it, and hoping for the best. It might work out. I wouldn't be counting on it.
What more is there here?
Well, it's still a $500 billion company, and I don't think that the fundamentals justify that valuation. And listen, if I was as good as trading stock as Elon Musk was, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be taking a vacation somewhere because he has sold now $40 billion over the last 13 months as we move lower here. So.
Yeah, even if you put the short on when Elon Musk made the bid for Twitter, you would be in very good shape. I'm just wondering at this point, as you see the story unfold, what makes you so confident that there is more downside here? Is there something very concerning to you that's happening?
So I think
here?
that a lot of the stock price has been about his brand, and we've seen that now get hit a little bit. And if you're a fundamental investor and you like Tesla, great. But I think still at this valuation, there's a lot of headwinds coming for the economy on a macro basis. Yes, they were early in EV. Yes, they were the best, or maybe still are the best, if you want to call it that. But a lot of competition's coming, and we're going into recession, it appears. So this is not immune from a normal economic cycle, and I still believe that on a fundamental basis, it's still very rich.
Yeah, just to be really clear, I mean, you didn't short the stock today, right? I mean, the stock's had like a big move here. You've been short. You've had a fundamental reason for the short. And I think that, as I've been talking to you over the course of this year, I mean, what's happened with Elon, it really is about him not being at Tesla. I mean, when you think about how much of that $500 billion market cap is encapsulated in his association with it, is the Twitter thing and some of the other stuff that's going on in and around it, is that a big part of it? Because if he is a big part of this valuation, and he's not likely to maybe have the same focus he's had in years past, is that part of it?
Yeah, he's running 3, 4, 5 companies, big companies, 3 very large companies at this point. And so there's a lot of, obviously, that he has to deal with. And if he's getting margin called, if that's the reason that he's been selling stock here, whether he's going to replace some of the debt, the unsecured debt, $3 billion that we heard about in the papers a couple weeks ago, we haven't seen a reason yet that he's sold over $7 billion worth of stock over the last couple weeks and months. So, that's on top of the $33 billion that he had done before. So it still remains to be seen. And I just think people, if you're a Tesla shareholder, and I have nothing against people being long it, you're getting frustrated here.
I think he mispronounced elated.
Because his attention span is being compromised, and I think they want him to focus on the business, and maybe the business isn't growing like it used to, and that would be the reason to stay short. But to your point, Dan, I'm not adding here. Obviously, that's not a smart thing to do.
Fair's fair. He has clarified he's not adding to the short position here. Obviously, they're sitting on a pretty healthy profit. I don't know when they began shorting Tesla stock. Slightly different from inserting the firework. Similar end result, though. Talk about playing with fire.
It's down a lot, but put it in perspective. It's a 15-for-1 split is what this has gone through in the last, the 5-for-1 and the 3-for-1. This stock is still the equivalent of over $2,000 on an apples-to-apples basis from 4 or 5 years ago, from the time that 420 was the funding secured. So put that in perspective. And the last thing I'll say is, I think when stocks go down like this, that I don't believe trade on fundamentals, it makes you take a better look at what the fundamentals are. If it doesn't trade on that, what is the buying point? I don't know.
Right. And then you layer in on it, the question about just PEs in general in this sort of investing environment, Danny. So I'm wondering how you think about the markets now in light of what the Fed did yesterday and these, supposedly high growth stocks, or at least valued like high growth stocks.
It's very frustrating. I think people that watched the Fed yesterday and saw that they're not either seeing what we're seeing. But again, this is a Fed who said inflation was transitory, right? Now they're erring on the other side, I believe. But I think the noise of the Fed, whether it's 25 basis points, 50 or 75 more to go, I think we're going to shift, to your point, Melissa, in the new year on fundamentals of companies, because to me, that's going to move to the backdrop. Will there be a point where they stop? Yes. Will there be a point where they cut? Yes. Do I think they get over 5%? Not a chance in terms of Fed funds. So I think we'll have a lot of back and forth with that, but I think the shift is quickly moving to fundamentals, and that's why I still like the Tesla short.
I always ask you this. Are there any new shorts out there that you're excited about? Or are you more inclined to be long at this point?
I'm more inclined to be long and find good cash flowing companies, don't have a lot of debt on their balance sheet, can have pricing power in this type of environment. And there always are going to be those. And I tell people all the time, if you're looking at an ETF, stop with the ETFs and find an individual stock. If you look at the bank index in the XLF, do I want to own Bank of America, Wells Fargo? Maybe not. But is Goldman Sachs a great company that trades very well in this type of environment? Sure. So I think you need to be a stock picker in this environment, and it excites me that there's opportunities, especially on the long side, that I think are going to come.
Danny, always good to see you. Thank you for coming by. Danny Moses, a Big Short fame guy.
I'm sorry.
Look, Tesla traded down.
I heard guys say "big chill." I thought it was a different movie. So if I look at the chart of Tesla, you got to go back to November of 2020 to find support here. So I agree, it can go lower, but I feel as if every time we count Musk out, he pulls another rabbit out of the hat. So I wouldn't be buying it tomorrow, but maybe around 135, 140. I just think that what Mark Field said the other night, that you can get a Tesla now in 6 days, or order one and build one and get it in 30 days. I think that's a tailwind because he's cutting through supply chain issues that are hurting most other companies. So I'm not willing to say it's over for Tesla just yet.
I continue to be both surprised and entirely unsurprised. After all, I did predict this was going to happen. The transition from bearish sentiment to bullish sentiment, where just about everybody recognizes the opportunity in Tesla. I literally described this playing out in the next few years, and I was describing that happening a few years ago, so I shouldn't be surprised to see it playing out. But it just seems so sudden. Just about everyone in the mainstream finance media is now starting to go, hang on a minute. I mean, it's kind of looking pretty cheap to me. This is really a big moment.
Oh, let me just play devil's advocate for 1 second.
Okay.
Is that not a headwind that, wow, there's no line, you can just get one in 6 days?
Like no one wants one.
Yeah, I get it, but there was so much talk about it, and I get it. We can go from a drought to a glut. That's the same thing that happened to semiconductors and everything else. But once, as Melissa used the analogy of retail, once people start to get back to spending again and realize, Chicken Little, the sky's not falling as quickly as we thought it was, they're going to want to make bigger purchases again, and Tesla seems to have the stock for them to buy.
All right, the only thing I want to say is we just spent a whole block talking about what high inventory has meant for the retail space. And this is a space that's been supply constrained for 2+ years or so. And we also saw Morgan Stanley bringing down their estimates for demand for EV in general. We know how important China is for Tesla right now. Europe's in a recession. High supply for these guys right now is an absolute disaster for this story, in my opinion. And I think you could probably overshoot that 140 level if that does prove to be the case anytime soon.
Brad, put aside, Guy, your quick take on where Tesla is.
We've been saying it's going to go to 150 for quite some time. It got down to 153.28 today. You had a huge volume day the other day, so you could get one of these bear market bounces in a name like we saw a few months ago. But Danny's spot on, and he's been spot on for a while. So I think if you do get that rally, you sell that sucker again.
I too could use the words sucker and selling Tesla stock in the same sentence, but in a vastly different context. I mean, you can't go broke making a profit. You'll probably never create any meaningful wealth either. I think it's safe to say that I've had my finger on the pulse of Tesla for the last decade plus. I've been paying attention to the company, their execution, what the world is saying about them. That includes analysts on Wall Street, as well as the finance media. And it seems like the heartbeat of Tesla is more rapid than it has ever been. There's been more discussion of Tesla in the last 48 hours than just about any other time in Tesla's history as a publicly traded company. You wouldn't know that looking at the stock price. But as I've observed in this video, even those who've been consistently bearish and negative on Tesla are starting to come around and go, hey guys, it's pretty cheap now. I mean, do we still hate Tesla? Are we supposed to hate, it kind of looks pretty cheap now. I continue to pray every evening to the Flying Spaghetti Monster for a sustained discount on Tesla stock, which is proof the Flying Spaghetti Monster is real because I prayed a few times and Tesla's down, therefore, obviously, only logical conclusion, Flying Spaghetti Monster, definitely real. And if you don't believe, you're going to burn in whatever the Flying Spaghetti Monster equivalent of hell is. Let me know in the comments below if anyone else has been buying Tesla stock around these levels, and if so, is it because you too prayed to the Flying Spaghetti Monster? Because I'm looking for some confirmation bias that my belief in the one true God / entity is legitimate, reasonable, and based on a very solid foundation of evidence rather than hopes and wishes. And just for the record, I've been posting 30 plus videos to Patreon every month for the last few months. That means a double dose of daily videos. If you want to see the other half of what I've got to say, you can head over to Patreon with the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment, and I'll see you over there. Love ya.